to address that. At this point, I don't think.
No, unless,
And like
well,
I said,
we can talk.
And like I said, and then with Park Street.
Not.
Right, we'll have to update.
Dave, do you remember the old clock that used to be up there?
5 minutes too slow or
No, I
too
mean the
fast?
one that was like from the '60s. That,
Camera's live. Camera's live.
Thanks, Pat.
These speakers always been here.
Yeah.
These speakers always been
You're
here.
gonna give your speech again about there's no need to tape.
Hey,
I felt so bad for you after Pat told me that. Yes.
this is an ordinance.
Shannon.
I gave this one a new ordinance number, correct?
And she just.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Amy just
You want to hand me the sheets?
It's funny how that works out.
All right, 6 o'clock. Call the board meeting to order. If you all join me in a moment of silence. And the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, you have the roll.
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Lindhorst. Trustee Mao.
yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Present.
Village President Kimsey.
Present. Begin this evening with public announcements. Mr. Curtis?
Okay, good.
Step on up to our mic for us so everybody can hear.
Mayor Kimsey, village leaders, good evening. I'm Scott Curtis, representing CBSI, the Youth Baseball and Softball Organization in Chatham. Tonight's purpose is we just wanted to update the village leaders on some numbers for the year, the number of registrations we have. We'd like to answer any questions that the village would have for what we do, and in addition talk about some of the resources that we're going to put back into the village this year to improve the parks. Before I get started on that, there's a couple of gentlemen I want to introduce. One is Roy Gilmore. Roy is very supportive and helps with the CBSI organization. And next to Roy is Chad Grau. Chad, again, is a board member within CBSI, and they're both here to help answer questions and support the league. So thank you. So far in 2018, we have 484 participants for our rec, baseball, and softball organization. We're happy with the numbers. Numbers last year were very similar. We're going to continue to try to grow those numbers, but we're going to try to grow those by Chad Grau back there in the red. Chad has done an amazing job with our marketing in the last few months. He's created a new website. He's created a great Facebook page for CBSI. And in turn, we're getting more communication about our league and more parents understanding what it's all about. So we're at 484 participants, which means we've got 40 teams. We have 40 volunteer dads or moms that are helping coach, which is an amazing task. And registration started January 1st. This is how we do it. January 1st, we have online registration, and it goes until the first week of March. So we closed that registration. We had our draft. We've ordered our shirts. Kids started to practice tonight, actually, with the nice weather. So exciting to say we're going to see a lot of kids out on the fields in the village. The other side of that is Chatham, CBSI, we feel like we're a rec organization that provides competitive opportunities. And those competitive opportunities are we have 18 teams in Chatham that are considered the Chatham Braves for baseball and the Chatham Angels for softball. And what does competitive mean? It just means that parents want to, I guess, put their toes in the water a little deeper than just regular rec. They might travel throughout central Illinois, and that's what competitive is, right? We do host 5 tournaments out at the community park. And those 5 tournaments so far, we have over 130 teams registered, which is good for the village of Chatham. We got teams from St. Louis, Quincy, Bloomington, Peoria, Champaign, even a few teams from Chicago that have already registered and paid to come to these 5 tournaments throughout the summer. We think that we're all volunteers, so we're out there at the fields and the concession stands, working the fields, picking up trash, and we're bringing, we think, about 130. We anticipate up to 150 for the summer. Parents and kids in the community, hopefully going to McDonald's, Subway, filling up the gas tanks. We don't have any hotels, as we know, but anyhow, we do think it provides an asset to the community. We're excited about that. In turn, in the last couple of years, if everybody doesn't know, so we try to provide about $10,000 back to the village every year in some kind of a park improvement. So last year, we actually went over our budget, but that's okay. We invested in $30,000 to build 2 beautiful dugouts at Community Park, Bob Erickson Field, for the high school and for the older kids within the summer. The year prior to that, we invested over $10,000 to improve Diamond 2 and Diamond 3 at the Community Park. The year before that, we invested over $20,000 to help fix JC Park. And I might have mentioned this before, but we did it because we felt like the softball organization needed a cleaner environment. So we redid the bathrooms, we redid the concessions, so the girls and the parents over there had just a cleaner environment, and we're happy about that. And then the year before that, we spent $20,000 to totally redo the bathrooms and concession stands at the community park. This year, if anybody has any suggestions, we've got some funds we would like to spend in the park. One thing we do think we need to do is improve the concrete slab over there at the community park concession stand. It's pretty tight and pretty narrow. By hoping to pour some extra concrete, buy some new picnic tables, just to get a cleaner, newer look out there, hopefully generate even more revenue in the concession stand, which then in turn more revenue back into the parks. And then finally, Diamond 1, the small field for our 8, 9, and 10-year-old players, we're going to pour some concrete around the backstop so the parents have a slab and it's easy to sit and enjoy watching the game. Because right now it's just grass and, you know. Those are our 2 investments, and right now it's going to be about $10,000. On top of that, we're committed to redoing the batting cages. There are a couple of them need nets. They're $1,000 a piece, so we'll take that and pay for those cages. And it's pretty neat during the summer to see all those kids out there using it. And then we're spending about $1,500. I met with Nick Frankie, who's been a great partner, great communicator for us, and we're going to spend about $1,500 and get this Turfus. It's kind of like a cat litter that you put on the field so it soaks up the water. Any questions or anything that somebody might have that they're not...
I have a question, Scott. I get calls all the time from people that want to use our diamonds that's not in conjunction with Chatham baseball. And I don't know if they want to have leagues out there, or they want to use one of the diamonds as their home diamond, or use it for practices and stuff like that. Do you limit the amount of traveling teams that you guys can have, or could anybody really come out and put together a traveling team and want to be part of Chatham baseball?
Yes, so definitely we do not restrict anybody. And in fact, how we do it, we do host a tryout. And we host the tryout late July, early August. And we actually pay. We pay University of Illinois Springfield or Lincoln Land Community College baseball coaches and players to come out to do the evaluation, so it's 100% unbiased. So based off the number of participants, Pat, we could have 1 team, 2 teams, or 3 teams. And in fact, in our softball 10U, with Roy back there kind of leads the softball, we have 3 teams in our 10U softball. We have 2 teams in baseball at 9, 11, and 14. So it depends on the number of players and participants that are come out there, and the parents want to dip their toes in that competitive side. We typically keep about 11 or 12 a team. So if we have in the high 20s, there might be a few kids that might not be able to participate, but we always will try to host or have as many teams as we can.
Now, do all those kids have to live in Chatham, or do they have to go to the Chatham schools, or?
Yes. So from 8U, our 2nd grade kids, all the way to our 6th grade, we mandate you have to be 100% Chatham school district. You don't have to attend the schools. We don't want to jeopardize that, but you do have to live in the Chatham school district. But if somebody goes to a Catholic school in Springfield, they could still participate just because they live in the Chatham school district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions for Scott or folks from CBSA? No. Scott, appreciate it. Chad, Roy, appreciate all you guys do for the kids all year. but especially during the summer. So thanks for coming out, sharing your numbers, impressive numbers that you guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any additional public announcements? Hearing none, public comments, Ms. Judd. Darlene, if you could help, do you know how to turn the light off on your camera? Because you're shining it right in my eyes. So every time I look at you, I can't see.
Kind of blinding.
Just look at the light, Dave.
Head toward the light.
I know how to do it.
Scroll up from the bottom.
Yeah, you scroll the bottom.
Thank you. It's
Oh, it's got
I feel like I'm in a dental chair or something. Put it back on.
There you go. There it is. It's off. It's off now.
It's off.
Yep,
She had
it's
it
on.
on her. Hold on, if she turns the video back on, it's going to turn back on though. Okay, try that again. I just had to get out of it. It was on YouTube. Is it on?
You're good now. Thank you.
But your time's up, so. Anybody else want to talk to? Good job, Amy.
On the truck, the 250 truck, is it under your bid the way that your other truck was?
It is.
It is bid out
Yeah.
of Springfield's,
That one came from Landmark. We passed that ordinance 2 weeks ago. I told Dustin, he went and got a hold of the guy, and the guy said, I sold it last night. So he goes, what can I do? And I said, I don't know if you can do anything. So I called Jeff, and Jeff says, if you can keep it under the same amount. I talked to Sherry, if you keep it under the same amount, we can repeal that one and then come back and ask for the new one. And the new one, actually, it's an F-250 instead of an F-150. It already has a plow set up on it, has a spray-in bed liner, it has running boards on it, and it's a local buy instead of an out-of-town buy. It's Landmark for it. So,
well, then my question is, why are you asking to waive the bidding if it's still under
Is it a state
your
bid?
bidding?
the other one was we followed the rules and went by state bid.
Right.
Okay, when probably if you asked for an F-250 on the state bid, it would probably be more expensive than what we're actually getting the truck.
Yeah, but you're following your procedures that you already have set up. And it seems like we're swaying away from those more and more when you ask for the bid to be waived, when that's really how it should be done. You have it to where anything over the 20,000 has to be bid up, out, and then you keep breaking that.
Well, see, Darlene, that state bid, the way they work, how that works for vehicles is the state puts out a
That's all the
request.
work for you.
Right. And they do that for everybody, all the municipalities in the state.
Exactly, I understand.
Okay. So then you have the option to purchase a truck through that company for that price. They guarantee you that price.
Right.
Now, if I could get a better truck for a lesser price, am I required to follow the state bids?
We're actually waiving the bids in this ordinance anyway. So.
Well, I understand that's what the ordinance is saying, but that's not following the procedure that is already set up, is my question. Why don't you have to follow the municipality's rules? Because that's a state rule. That's not necessarily your rule. It is your rule, but it is also a qualification for the state.
The state rules for public works projects is a bid limit on that, which is we talked about is now 25,000 a couple weeks ago. To go out and buy supplies or goods or that types of things, there's not a state requirement on that, but we do locally here have a ordinance that sets forth the process.
Right.
But still, even at the state level, that can be waived. So that's why in this situation, because of the timing, because they felt like they got a price that's within the guidelines similar to what the state bid was, that staff is recommending to waive the bidding requirements and go ahead and purchase this. Now the board can decide they don't want to do that, but that's That's what's been presented if they want to go forward with this purchase, because this technically was not bid. So that's why it says technically waive any bidding requirements.
Yes, but it's still not following the state rules. But that's your choice. That's, you know, I just feel that, you know, you're sidestepping once again, but you sidestep on a lot of different things. And it's not my place to stand up here and point those out. But every single time warrants are put out there, there is something in there that should have been bid, and there isn't. And yes, I am going to continue to bitch. And when I went home last week, I did watch the video that was still on. The Open Meetings Act was broken. And that, I think, in itself is a sad thing.
Thank you, Ms. Judd. Mr. Girt? Can you come up to the mic, Jeff?
So this is on.
Up to the mic, Jeff. We gotta get you on the mic.
I think I'm gonna be on the next one.
Okay.
Because that's what CMT's on.
Correct. All right. No additional public comment. Move on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to put the minutes and the warrants?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Mao has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Scherschel. Discussion or questions regarding the minutes or the warrants? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
No old business. Under new business, item 1, an ordinance repealing ordinance 1818 and authorizing a line item fund transfer and purchase of truck for the water department. Do I have a motion to put that on the table?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Trustee
second.
Scherschel, seconded by Trustee Mao. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Do you have a resolution to go with the MFT?
Yeah.
So it's just
You
accepting.
need this.
That's next.
That's the actual bidding sheet for the truck.
We need to sign that.
Is there an actual resolution with that, Pat?
For the
No.
for the MFT, or if it's
The MFT, we just have,
authorization to sign?
yeah.
Item 2.
They call that a resolution for,
Oh, it's the IDOT form, they call it the resolution. Item 2 is the municipal estimate of maintenance cost under the Illinois Highway Code, MFT allocation. I have a motion to authorize the signature of this document.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Scherschel has made a motion.
Second.
Second by Trustee Ger. Discussion regarding.
Yes. There should be a resolution, which is a different form that goes with the estimate of maintenance cost.
Jim, is that an answer you've got?
we didn't pass that last time, Jerry. We just passed the only resolution was that.
Basically, it does require the passage of a resolution. Now, we are working on language that allows you to submit the resolution appropriating the budget for general maintenance using MFT, but that has not been decided on. But there is a resolution out there that should be going with this, appropriating the MFT funds.
You've got till May 1, correct?
Correct.
So no rush. We can have Jeff confirm. And
yes, and the main purpose was getting it to Pat, presenting it to the board, and taking a look at the maintenance items that were identified on here to make sure that we still have concurrence. I know we've talked about projects in the past with Park Street being a priority project for the village. A good portion of this maintenance cost or maintenance resolution will be for Park Street. And then, with the remainder of it coming from the bond funds, appropriated for roadway work for the village. And then the rest of it pretty much follows in line with the maintenance items or maintenance cost activities that were done last year. Items such as, miscellaneous sidewalk, curb and gutter, bituminous patching, winter maintenance, street sweeping, seal coat, crack sealing, PCC patching. So, of the resolution, we're looking at about, $350,000 $350,000 expenditure of the MFT funds. Current balance is about $273, I believe, and the village accrues about $300,000 a year in MFT. So under this program, we're looking at an expenditure of about $350,000, $340,000, somewhere in there, depending on where the final numbers lie. But about $200,000 of that is just general maintenance by village street crews, and those activities in terms of, plowing and patching and sidewalks and so forth, with about $150,000 of that going towards the North Park Avenue project. So, like I said, the main purpose was to, get this in front of the board. You guys have an idea of what we're looking at this year, and make sure that it's, concurrent with the previous discussions that we've had in terms of, roadway work to be allocated for these funds.
Terry, do you have additional questions regarding the schedule?
Yeah, as far as the estimate, no problems with that.
Perfect. Entertain a motion to move this to old business for 2 weeks from now.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jim. Item 3, we're going to hold for old business. Do we have additional public comments regarding village business this evening? Hearing none. The schedule of meetings: ADA Transition Plan 6 p.m. April 17th, Planning Commission 6 p.m. April 19th, Village Board 6 p.m. April 24th, Police Commission 5:30 May 17th, Utility Oversight Subcommittee 7:30 June 11th.
We'll move that up. We'll have a different date for that, but I haven't talked to Pat.
Subject to
change.
We do need a quick executive session tonight. We're at a spot where we could move right to the committee at this point in time, or we could take it now. What's your preference, Mr. Chairman?
If we could move it to after, it'd be good.
Works for me. We have a motion to adjourn the board meeting.
I'll make that motion. A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.
Then do we need a motion to go into executive session?
No, we're going to do it after the.
Oh.
And then just put it right there.
Yeah. Kimsey's just let him.
He's been deputized.
Does he get a gun?
Not till I get mine.
On the agenda to discuss the committee.
On your committee meeting?
Oh, the Citizens Utility Board or whatever.
It'd be on your committee meeting.
Oh, but I don't see it on there either. Unless I'm blind.
Right, you got a new clerk, be gentle.
Never done this before.
Welcome.
Never been involved
You've
in
seen
a
it
board
on
meeting
TV a
before.
lot.
Never been here before.
Yeah. But you did say the Holiday Inn Express last night.
All right. Call the committee of the whole to order. Can I get a roll call?
Sure. Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherzel.
Here.
Chairman Gergel.
Present. All right. Okay, have a motion public comments on agenda topics. I have Jeff signed up, but you wanted to be probably at the end?
Oh, no, it's fine now.
Okay.
Sorry for starting the meeting. After the meeting last night for the committee of the whole, for the utility committee, one thing I did find when I was looking at something was we talked about timeline sometimes and kind of how things coordinate. One of the things I was looking at was the Springfield-Sangamon County Planning Commission. When our plant actually passed through there, it was an interesting thing. June 3rd of 2010 is when it went through the land use subcommittee. June 16th of 2010 is when it actually got passed by the Springfield-Sangamon County Planning Board. It was the last agenda item of that day, and the next item was electing a new board, basically. So it was the last item of the day. I thought that was very interesting because that was the last one that they did. And the next day after that, June 17th, is when all of the little shenanigans started happening with Tim Pissarro's computer died. He has important documents on there. We need those. Oh, we can't get them. We have a new computer. Suddenly, our plant went from what they had already proposed to this new thing that they built. Pipe sizes changed, a lot of stuff in that next week or two, and Jake Jessen says, oh, I'm going to be on vacation the next week and a half, I'm not available for comments. There's definitely a lot of weird stuff that happened in that 2-week time period. It's just another one of those things that we need to look at and figure out when they talked to the Springfield-Sangamon County Commission that day, what plan did they present to them? Because they knew that next day they were going to be changing it and submitting all kinds of change orders and everything else. So there's a lot of shenanigans right there in that 1 or 2 day period there. And so that's definitely something that we need to look at with that utility commission, maybe for the next meeting or something. So I thought that was kind of an interesting timing thing. So I just wanted to bring that up so we can look at that. So that was what I had.
Thank you. Any additional public comments on agenda topics? Hearing none, move on. Have a motion to approve the minutes in the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Churchill was the first and Trustee Mao was the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, so passes. No old business, new business, CMT engineering updates. Jim?
Okay, a couple of items here. A week and a half ago, we did submit on behalf of the village to the County Planning Commission funding or STU funding application for Walnut Street between Park and Meadowview Lane, and that the Planning Commission received, or SATS received, 4 individual projects, 2 from the city of Springfield, 1 from the village of Chatham, and 1 from the county, Sangamon County. So, typically in the past, how that's worked, I think they're looking at an appropriation of about $6 million associated with that. And in the past, they have, typically split that up into between different projects, kind of spreading the wealth on that. So, a couple of the highlights on that project, we're looking at about a $1.5 million project to improve Park Street, or improve Walnut Street to a 3-lane urban section. One of the things that looks favorably is obviously local community participation in terms of funding. So one of the things that we do need to look at in terms of the funding available and, what revenues that we have for roadways is being able to have our match on that project, which is a 30% match is what we set for a goal on that. So, moving forward, we're looking at a 2021 fiscal year date in terms of anticipated construction associated with that project. And at the next month's meeting, if the Village of Chatham is successful, then we would need to move forward in terms of preliminary engineering and then construction engineering on that project, and looking at funding sources to meet our local funding. Now, there are some developer funds out there that we've talked about. Breckenridge obviously has a stake in that in terms of a local share, cost share on that. And I know we've talked with Rave Homes on the north side there that at one time they had some money appropriated with that for some turn lanes. But, just pointing that out, that if we move forward with that, that will be a commitment on behalf of the village to match that funding and look at the improvement of that project to move from what's really a 2-lane rural roadway in the middle of town to a 3-lane urban section that ties into the existing pavement sections on either end.
And Jim, that 1.5, is that strictly construction? Or
construction and engineering.
Okay.
And, one of the highlights that we had in there in terms of, need or benefit of the project is the existing pavement is in fairly good shape. I believe from the PASER rating, we're looking at a rating of 7. One of the things that we would like to do is preserve that pavement and treat it as more of a widening and overlay type project rather than, let it go to crap and it be a reconstruction, full reconstruction pavement, which would be considerably more. So, that's one of the angles that we pushed on that project as far as, bang for the buck and closing in this rural section. The other one is to just attraction of, development, both retail and residential in that area, where we essentially have a rural roadway section in the middle of town. If you build that up into an urban section and have that, contiguous with the other sections, it just draws more of that investment to the community and is just more of a viable spot in terms of, development or desire for development. So a couple of different avenues there, also looking at extending the bike trail along the north side of that roadway as well. Provide connectivity to the main north-south routes, main subdivisions in town, and also back to the interurban trail. So all in all, a nice multimodal project. So.
Refresh my memory. What were we talking about as far as how far west we were going to go with that? I know we were talking from Park Street east, but from Park Street west, were we talking about maybe straightening out that dog leg a little bit right there? Or were we focusing everything on that particular project to the east?
This one would be associated with just right there in front of Casey's, then over to Bellevue.
Okay.
Where the two urban sections are stubbed out and everything's tapered back in. You have the curb and gutter way out to the side, and it narrows back into a 2-lane roadway. So it would just be completing that gap section between Park and Meadowview.
Okay.
Another activity that's going on, things are ramping up for the tank painting projects here for this spring. The first one being the ground storage tank out on the frontage road. We have a test run going on this Thursday in which we're going to bypass the tank, operate the pressure of the water distribution system in the village of Chatham with the South Sangamon pumps, and then they will control the pressure in the system by regulating the elevation of the elevated tank here in town. So some computer programming to make all that happen, but we're going to do a test run on that this Thursday, run it for about a 24-hour period, just make sure that everything works seamlessly before we bring that tank and drain it and bring it offline for painting activities. Contractor's already mobilized some of his tarps out there. We anticipate the adjacent roadway to be closed for that area to create a little bit more of a storage yard for him during his operations. And then, looking at full-blown construction going on that here in the next probably 3 weeks, end of April, with completion being the first week of June. And then once that's completed, the contractor will demobilize and then come back in the fall to do the elevated tanks during the non-peak usage times.
Jim, on that test run Thursday, are we, and hopefully if there's any kinks in it, which I hope there's not, with the SCADA system and any issues we may have with that elevated tank, hopefully we can work those out.
Yes.
And I know we're not going to have a frozen sculpture again, but,
no.
Just hopefully no issues like we had earlier.
Well, hopefully it stops snowing, which would be a good thing.
That would be nice, yes.
It's difficult to paint in the snow, but that'll eliminate the frozen sculpture issues. No, it's the South Sangamon pumps will be driven by the elevation in the elevated tank, and the pumps will either cycle down or speed up to maintain pressure in the system through the elevated tank and through the pressure of those pumps. So with limited storage, only related to the elevated tank, with the ground storage tank being brought offline, it's more critical that the elevation of that tank be maintained on a more precise basis to make sure that there's ample water for the residents of the village of Chatham. So we do want to do a test run, make sure that there's no stress on the system, it doesn't blow out a pipe, because the last thing that we want to do is get it all set up, bring the tank offline, drain it, and then flip it over and something breaks. So I want to do a test run, just 24-hour period, and make sure that everything's in place. It works. They're getting the SCADA system. It's talking back and forth, and everything's operational. So we talked a little bit here at the last meeting here in terms of roadway improvements. We submitted MFT resolution in the amount of $350,000, which that'll take care of the bulk of the maintenance items, about $200,000 of that, just general maintenance performed by village crews, and then appropriating about $150,000 of that to the Park Avenue improvement project. Then on the flip side, with the $500,000 in roadway bond money that's been allotted to public projects, the first one is going to be the Plummer Boulevard underpass, which looking at about $130,000 to $140,000 construction cost on that. We did receive all the video back on that. Several sections of cracked pipe, a couple of sections of pipe that's just been completely crushed under. disjointed pipe throughout the entire system. But it's what we're going to do is line the existing pipe with a polymer resin that will actually act as a pipe itself inside the existing pipe and have the strength to support it solely without the need for the concrete pipe rather than dig up the roadway. So we have plans, wrap those up actually today. We'll submit those to the village tomorrow for preliminary review. And if everything looks good and everyone's on page with that, we'll probably look at soliciting bids next week.
Now, these issues that we're having with that plumber area, are these issues that you would, in projects that are that same age, I mean, would you think they would have those same issues, or are these issues that we necessarily shouldn't be seeing this early on?
I'm going to say something that's probably not real popular, but I believe a lot of these issues had to do with the initial construction.
Well, that's what I was getting at. There are some of these issues, was the equipment not, or the pipes not the right stuff to use? Was any of it preventable?
The issue that I see in not having the construction records to see what the sequencing of the build was, but really what we have is a situation where you have storm sewer that's dug deep and gravity flows down that creek, and you have retaining walls adjacent to that, okay? So under normal construction operations, you would never dig a deep trench for a storm sewer at the footing toe of a retaining wall, just because of the fact that if that trench collapses, it'll have negative impacts on the performance of that retaining wall. What we believe more than likely happened was the storm sewer was put in first, then backfilled, and then construction happened on the wall. But during the construction of the wall, there's probably heavy loading associated with, cranes, concrete trucks, so forth, so on, that more than likely caused the fracture, breaking, puncture of some of the pipe segments, and then disjointing of some of the pipe segments.
Now, is there a reason, and it may just be because you guys weren't the engineers at the time, but is there a reason you guys don't have the original construction plans for that area to take a look at, the different?
We do. We just don't have the construction documents, the field books that everything, on this day this happened, this day this happened, this day this happened. With those records 20 years old, I don't even know where those would be at this point. But, some of the issues that we're seeing is, like I said, just pipe, top of a pipe of a segment or two is just completely crushed in and smashed flat. But that's under the roadway, and there's no physical damage at the top of the roadway, so there's nothing that would have, where's the meteor that landed on it, and crushed it through the roadway and crushed it below. So it would have happened before the roadway went down.
Yeah, and that was a county/state project.
Yes.
So you're saying that most likely was crushed during or pre-construction?
After the construction of the storm sewer, and more than likely during the construction of the retaining walls.
Wow.
Okay.
Because it's really not common practice to go back after the fact and
right.
Storm sewer.
Yeah.
You put it in the ground, you think it's good, you see water flow through it, and water's flowing through it. But in addition to the water flowing through it, we've already excavated 4 Vector trucks completely full of sand and backfill material.
Oh.
So, and
it's been a while.
It's a large truck.
It's been in there a while.
So it's been in there a while, it's clogged, and it keeps sifting through, and that's why we're seeing the settlement issue.
Well, so yeah, my next question then is the integrity of the retaining wall that's sitting on top of it. Have we done anything to maybe look at the integrity of everything that's sitting on top of that?
Yes, here's what we've looked at is the locations where we're seeing the infiltration. And for the most part, the majority of the run of the storm sewer is above the footing of the retaining wall.
Okay.
And then only on the west end, where it continues to, retaining wall starts coming up, but the storm sewer continues to drain down to Polecat Creek. There's a section there that was a particular concern to us as we looked at the video, but we're not seeing the same levels of, the pipe disjointing, the pipe cracking in those locations, which indicates that, first of all, the sewer was deeper at that location, so for construction loading to impact that, it would be much higher volume of construction traffic. Plus the walls in that area are lower walls, so you probably had less loading, less impacts in those areas. But where those two profiles cross, where the roadway or where the footing is here, the storm sewer starts going this way, where it could undermine that area. A lot of what we're seeing is the infiltration is focused along, at least at the surface, is focused along the structures themselves, the storm sewer inlets. That's where we're seeing the collapse of sewers. And the other thing that we're seeing in those structures is adjustment rings, concrete rings that are put on top of the concrete tub to get the grate at their correct elevation.
Right.
Weren't used, and pieces of brick or pieces of concrete were just shoved in there to temporarily support that, and it wasn't backfilled with mortar, so when you go under there, you can reach your hand all the way around.
So that's probably the source.
Those faulty work, yeah.
There's issues. So, and this is documented on video, and this is our observations and what we're seeing out there. So, as part of the corrective action, we're going back, rebuilding the top half of the inlets, resetting the grates, putting mastic seals in there to make sure that everything's sealed up.
Do we know who put it in?
That I do not know.
And Jeff, I mean,
Do we have any record of who put it in?
No.
Is
that managed by the state?
But if they,
I will take exception to that, Pat.
That's 20 years.
But no,
20 years ago.
I probably, my signature is probably on those plans.
Thanks, Terry.
But no, the oversight as far as construction, that was handled through Sangamon County, since they were participating in the local share. They took it on as their project. So yes, that information is out there somewhere, just not readily available as far as who the contractor was. But
could there be liability issues to where if they didn't build it correctly?
This far along.
Or is it too far out?
It's usually statute of limitation starts when you find out.
On some of them.
Right.
On something like this, we'd have to go back and look at the documents.
and that's only if they exist. They may have already been potentially destroyed as far as your
But if the documents,
construction records.
I'm just saying, if the documents don't exist, but you see where you can reach your hand through, and that's not normal construction methods.
Correct.
Couldn't you go after the person who put it in?
We can certainly talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but if we can recoup something, that would be nice.
That's fixing another road.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, well, I'll work with Pat in terms of, whatever documents that you need collected on that. But obviously our focus is getting things stabilized.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
To a point where migration of the backfill material is stopped, and then getting the sidewalks rebuilt. So really focusing on, looking at each of the inlet structures, pulling the sidewalk out of there, recompacting, jetting some of the sand material underneath there, backfilling with either rock or CLSM, low flow, low strength concrete, to be able to stabilize that, and then doing a pipeliner system through the pipes to fill the joints and to stop the infiltration through the pipes, and then also to stabilize the areas of the pipes that have either crushed or are missing altogether.
So you've got a strong feeling, though, that you've identified the sources of all the infiltration, the sand and other construction material that are in there, that you now have a solid feeling of, we know where it all came from.
I would say 90% of it. The only one that we don't know is that there's drains from behind the walls that drain through the wall and then go into the inlet, and we're seeing a lot of material in there. So as part of our project, we're doing an exploratory trench down to those drains and see if those are crushed, or if there's any way that material can get into that and rebuild those drains. There's one on each side that connects back in. So that would be the kind of the unknown, if you will, in terms of what we can see. But the video is pretty clear, and the volume of material that we've hauled out of these storm sewers, 4 full Vector trucks of sand, sand, brick, chunks of concrete like this. It's
that new
pretty amazing in terms of what's in there.
It took a long time.
Okay, good.
So yeah, the first part of the bond money would go towards the Plummer Boulevard underpass, and then the remainder, in conjunction with the MFT funding, would go towards the North Park Avenue improvements, which will be a more of a structural overlay, HMA overlay out there, and then rebuilding the radius returns on the west side of the roadway, fixing the ADA ramps, adjusting the drainage structures in that area, because that whole area, especially on the south side, is pretty steep. There's some pretty big dips and holes in there that would make that nearly impossible to traverse from an ADA standpoint. I know that's one of the priority routes that we're looking at. So, getting those ramps up to snuff and getting tied back into the existing sidewalk in a policy manner is what we're looking at. So,
what's the timing on that bid for Park? When would you anticipate them to start?
Once we get the resolution here, then we'll get going on that. But I'd like to do that earlier in the summer, because the other thing too is right now there's a great climate for contractor work. There's not a lot of work out there, so I do want to take advantage, or at least have the opportunity to take advantage if we get good bids. Maybe there's another project that we can let out there and get something squeezed in before the end of the construction year here this year.
So you're aiming toward about the end of school?
I'd like to have it done before the end of school.
Start as school ends and done before it starts, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, number 2, St. Andrews Society Highland Games. Request for the use of community park and serve alcohol May 18th, 19th of 2018.
They've made the request. Usually we pass an ordinance. I just wanted to put it on the, I got it too late to really get it on the board meeting, so I thought, well, I'll add it to the committee of the whole. If you guys are okay with that, we'll have a resolution prepared for the next meeting.
Are they earlier this year?
They are.
They moved it up last year. They changed their date a little bit last year. Kind of moved
Their
it
goal,
around.
I think, is to try to find whatever rainy weekend they can.
Yeah.
It seems like
last year,
every time they do the Celtic games, it pours.
They went later last year because they thought, well, they would avoid the rain.
It was still rainy, so.
And their original weekend was beautiful.
Yeah.
Our park regulations don't allow for consumption and sale
Alcohol.
of alcohol in the park. So as this comes up, homecoming and the Sweet Corn Festival or something like that, there's a resolution that we pass each time that waives the requirements for the group in that time period.
Do we have any one that's against this? I mean, I think there's a consensus to probably move this forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion or no?
No. All right. Number 3, transferring appropriation authority between line items and adopting supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2018. Sherry?
It is time to take a look at our fiscal year 2018 budget again to make sure what we've passed is in line with the spending. So what you have here is attached is a worksheet with the items that are the line items I'm seeing are projecting that may go over budget that I would like to shift between other line items. In 2 weeks, I will take another look at this and make sure everything is still in line. I may make some slight adjustments, and then there will be a ordinance for passage at the meeting on April 24th. All of the items are transfers except for the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. It did not have a budget passed, so we will need a supplemental appropriation to budget something to refund lot sales, and that amount is about $2,000. I'll just briefly go over some of the items that I'm projecting to exceed what we'd originally passed. The administration fund within the general fund, legal expenses, professional services, general insurance expense. Those are the items that are projected to possibly go over.
If you guys look at that chart across the top where it says change, If you look at the change column, if it's a positive number, then we're moving money into that fund. If it's a negative number, we're taking money out of that fund to fund
line item.
The positive. Exactly.
With legal, that's for Jeff and then also for police? Are we going to break that?
Police has always, our legal expense has always just been in the administration fund. We made a special exception when we had special counsel come in on the water issue, and it was actually expensed out of the water fund. But traditionally, we've always put all the legal expenses in one line item and expensed out of the administration department.
I think
that does include the HR expenses we've incurred lately.
I think that's what we're going to split up in the next budget. We're going to try to distinguish between legal expenses and our HR cost.
Okay.
And we'll set some money aside in each person's budget then for that.
Brett,
okay.
Kind of boarding it. All of it's ultimately out of the general fund?
Sure.
It's just which line?
Sure. Which line items paid out of?
Just on the legal, you've kind of had the perfect storm this year. Hopefully next year is a little better budget season when we have a few of the labor negotiations, arbitrations, a lot of the annexations behind us. So hopefully we start to see a shift in those.
You promise?
It's all on you.
We've discounted quite a bit this year, and I'm really hoping we have a better year next year in the legal budget. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I had a question on two specific items. It's on page 2, Sherry, both concerning the water fund. I guess my question is, how do we, especially on the water expense, when we knew what the rate increase was going to be from, because we were given 3 different rate increases, 3 different years, how are we short on the water expense itself?
Well, water expense can vary depending on how much water we buy. So in this case, I probably underestimated the gallons that we were going to purchase from different sources. It's pretty close. I mean, it's pretty close. We could actually end up under it, but to be comfortable, I'd rather up at 30,000 and be sure.
Yeah,
so that's a consumption-driven number.
Yeah.
So typically, the approach we take when we go through the budget, anything that's going to affect a revenue estimate is estimated on the low side. So obviously, with expected water sales, you've got an equivalent amount of water purchases. So keeping the water purchase sale number low and conservative kind of drives that one.
Is that the reasoning for the meters too? The same reason, or?
Meters are due to replacing meters in the fixed meter network.
Right, we've been installing that new fixed network where it'll automatically read all the meters, and some of the older style that we have needed to be replaced so that they'll work with those. So we had a large number of meter purchases this year.
These chains moving, or they're moving faster through that than they expected to be, aren't they?
Well, no, because I expected this to be done 1.5 years ago, to tell you the truth. So I really did. I think everybody did. And it's taken a while, but the Itron system is working. It is reading the meters. It does give us a list of ones that it doesn't read, and then therefore we go out, we check to make sure that we have a device in that area to be able to pick that up. And we've had to add a few more of those, especially over on the older part of Chatham, because of all the developed trees. It blocks the signal, and we need to be able to get that signal all the time. So we've had to put a few extra antennas up, but the plan is to be able to have probably 90 to 95% of the village covered by this. We'll still have to do some manual pickups, but it should be able to pick up most of the stuff. And when it does, it picks up the water and electric both.
Okay. Any other questions for Sherry? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. Next, village manager update.
Well, Jim took a lot of my thunder, and Sherry talked about the reappropriation. We are working on the budget. We've been through it a couple different times. Vern's been through it. Shane's been through his. We approached it with a zero growth budget. We don't see a lot of new income coming into the village over this last year. We do from property taxes, but a reduction in sales taxes. And then the state's been holding back a little bit more. So we don't see a lot of growth there right now. So we're trying to live within the same means that we did last year. The reason that we don't have a budget to put in front of you right now is that we're still in the middle of union negotiations with the police and the operators union.
So what you should expect, similar to what we did last year, it'll be an ordinance next meeting that's a continuing appropriation that grants the authority to continue to incur expenses following the prior year's budget until that time where we finalize those negotiations and finalize the budget.
Okay.
So as you're looking at numbers, you feel like, I mean, it looks like even with these transfers, you're still ahead. You know what I mean?
We still have, yeah, when you've looked at the numbers that Sherry's given you in the past, we are still into the good.
Good, that's what it looks, okay.
Yeah.
And you still feel
our
that
goal
way
is to still have a couple months to be able to pay all of our bills on hand. And we've got there in one fund and we're very close in two others. So
you're a couple months ahead. You said 6 months, remember? 2 years.
Well, if we get 6 months, I'm sorry, I'm going to spend some of that.
I remember you said that.
Somebody gets an award if we get to that coming.
Yeah, if we get to that part.
You quoted it. I remember it. You
If we
said,
get to
I'll
that,
get
then
6
they're going to
months
say
ahead.
that we're charging them too much.
I remember when I first moved here, we had only lived here a couple of years. And we got a rebate
At Christmas time.
at Christmas
Yeah.
time on our utility bills.
I have heard stories about this rebate.
Now, you understand how that works. You pay for all your utilities over 11 months, and then you don't have a bill the 12th month, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right.
But in the 12 months is when everybody's Christmas lights were on and all of that stuff, so it was great. And that went on for what? Work on that again.
Mm-hmm.
That went on for how long?
What's our
3 years?
what's our sales tax in Chatham?
No.
6 1/4, I think.
All right. Moving to the next, public comments on village business. I don't have the sign in. Did anybody have any public comments on village business? Okay. Schedule of meetings, ADA Transition Plan Committee, 6 p.m., April 17th. Planning Commission, 6 p.m., Municipal Hall, April 19th. Village Board, 6 p.m., April 24th. Public Properties and Recreation Commission meeting, Municipal Hall, 6 p.m., May 14th. And that's most likely when we'll reschedule the Utility Commission. I'm waiting to hear back from Mr. Clayton. And then Chatham Police Commission, 5:30 on May 17th. And we do have reason to go to closed session?
2C2 and 2C11.
All right. Under 2C2 and 2C11. Can I get a motion? Collective bargaining. And litigation.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
And no action after.
Just say goodbye.
So Trustee Fountain made the motion. Who seconded? Trustee Mao seconded.
Roll call, right?
All vote in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Lindhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherzo.
Yes.
Chairman Gerger.
Yes. Thank you.
Who seconded?
Mao.
Me.
Trustee Mao.
The gentleman in the pink tie. You gotta sit back down to get it out.
Did you see this? Did you see the video?
Video of what?
Oh, what Jim was talking about?
No, I haven't.
Is there any way to give me like heads up though?
Hey, Joe.
Hey, how are you?
Look very handsome today for being Amy.
Kind of a different seat.
I know.
You know, the cleanup because of all.
I looked over and was like, wait a minute.
You're going like, nothing but.
Wait, where am I? What year is this? Now I'm running back and forth and crazy.
Because I don't think our guys have gone out and picked anything up either. So.
Yeah, I've only got one bag out there, but I got all those freaking pine needles. I swept my sweet street again. If I'd known I was going to have to do this every year, I'd have married a Dutchman.
It's funny.
Yeah. Especially with a bad back.
Everybody is ready for warm weather.
I saw on Facebook. This is awesome.
Yeah.
No, somebody did.
He has a tough time getting around.
Jill, and Jill's like, oh no, I'm going to go there in Indianapolis.
For a long time.
Oh, yeah. I'm on Facebook. It's great to see we were invited. And Wendy goes, oh, we were.
Wants to hang
The mangrove trees?
No, there's.
You guys can go to this.
Oh, with the moss and stuff like that.
What do you mean you don't want it? You haven't moved yet. You don't have a house out there.
6 p.m.
You have a house up here. By the time you move, manage to be good. Because you realize what he's going to be. You saw what he got on career things. So they asked, they gave the kids some kind of questionnaire, and then they told them what their profession was. Neurosurgeon.
Sam wants to be a wild horse rider.
Well, she can. She's married to a neurosurgeon.
Okay, Sam, that doesn't make money. I'm not even sure that job
The only reason I want him to get married is because then I get to hang out with Clay the rest of our lives.
That job doesn't exist. She goes, oh, it will.
We can sit out on the porch and drink and make fun of Green.
Yeah, oh, it will. She says, oh, it will. I'm like, no, there's no money making in that. I know, I need to see who's out here.
Some camaraderie with the pilots. You know, and they didn't shut Becky down. That was, you know, that was a plus. No, when you just said something earlier. So, you know, they didn't shut you down. Before we would have been shut down. So, I mean, that's honestly what it boils down to. And do I have it recorded? Yes, sir, I do. The whole thing.
We're paging YouTube.
Yes. Are you guys talking a little bit?
Over now.
You see a cute little boy come in, let me know.
Oh, I'll grab it. We're taking him. I'll
He's
take
supposed
him
to get
home.
dropped off, and I'm kind of like, oh. He's done with practice at 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem. I'll be here.
And then,
You want me to take him to my house and play with Naruto?
you can probably love that instead of sitting here in this place.
It's gonna be bored anyway.
All right, well, text me, and then I'll,
Okay, if he shows up, I'll
if he wants to just sit, let me know. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
What do you mean from the beginning? Well, last week they didn't shut the recorder off. So when the meeting was over and we had all that, they were in here. Everyone but Nina and Matt. And they were not. Some of it's, you know, actual video, audio. And the rest of it is only audio. But it's there. And it's over an hour.
They were talking after the meeting.
She's not gonna spill it. Not in here anyway, because it may still be on.
Is it off? I don't know. Well, it should still be on. Whose recording is that?
That's the Villages.
That's the Villages.
Where they get that?
They put it on YouTube.
Well, theoretically, unless they delete it accidentally.
So evidently all that I said to Fountain is still going? It's still on the YouTube?
Sure
Have you
it
checked the YouTube to see?
Is it live? Sure it is. See, Pat says live.
Oh. Can you understand it? Is it all garbly? Which you can understand.
Well, I mean, won't be clear. It's a lot of, typically you can't rewind a lot of stuff. It won't be.
Is that it, 19 noise? Play the piano with that cat?
It's in there doing something, I have no idea. Not that we would. Huh?
Your phone was like home.
No, not me.
Let me check.
No, I mean, no. Am I sure? No. I don't even know how to turn the flashlight off when the video is going. Am I sure about anything? No. But I did learn something.